Hello and welcome to another video, and this one is super special because this one is a video to help you pass the Living Environment Regents of August 20th of 2024. So I want to first present to you my online class that I specifically made for crunch time. Right now, if you are watching this video, you're actually studying for the August exam on Tuesday. But this video is going to stay up all the way until the January 2025 exam. Because after the January 2025 exam, there will be no more Living Environment Regents, and it's going to be changed to a different type of science state exam for high school students, specifically for biology, the topic of biology. So I made this class specifically for students who want to have a full range of knowledge of what they need to know for Tuesday's test and for January's test. So here is the what you'll see when you click on the link. The link to this course is right in the description box. So this is the first thing you're going to see. You're going to see all of the topics, but I want to take you down to the course outline. So I made a 150-page student worksheet, and I gave you directions to go ahead and print that out, but you don't have to. If you do want to print it out, please do double-sided tape so that we don't waste paper. If you can do it double-sided, but it is 150 pages. This is a guide to all of the videos. And this is the link to the full course, which is what I think you should do. I really think you should do the full course because you're going to walk into the test on Tuesday completely prepared to take that test. So here we have chapters 1, which is characteristics of life, chapter 2, which is cells, and I want you to see that this is how I break down the chapters. So the chapters will have the video lesson, then it'll have any associated lab copies, and then you're going to see practice questions, Regents practice questions, a student copy. You can open it digitally and just work on it on an iPad or some kind of tablet where you can write on it, or you can print it out and work on it on paper. And of course, I will also give you the answer key. So if I would have done a video going over the questions, it just would have been too long and you wouldn't be able to finish this whole course by Tuesday. So I'm leaving it up to you to do the practice questions and then answer, and then take a look at your answers with the answer key. So I have cells, I have the diffusion through a membrane lab that you were supposed to do. I have the human body systems with practice questions. I have making connections lab, another mandatory lab. I made this its own chapter with practice questions and the answer key. Genetics, this one's a longer video. It also tells you how long the videos are. I try to keep them brief. Then you have the practice questions and the answer key. Then you have evolution, the Beaksa Finch lab copy, but I also summarize it within the video, and then practice questions and answer key. And then I have the ecology, which has the video, the lesson video, and then the practice questions with the answer key, and of course the relationships and biodiversity lab. These videos are broken down into 4 parts for the ecology. So you are going to have everything you need to pass this test on Tuesday. This online class should take you no more than 4 hours to do with the Regents questions. So right now is Saturday. It's maybe by the time you see this, it'll be 10 p.m. I'm so sorry that this came at a later time, but I really needed to take my time and making sure that I covered everything for you and that this class could be done in 4 hours of your time, or maybe even less. Another thing that I did, which I'm going to put it in the description box, is I broke this down into 4 separate classes. Let's say that the 4 separate classes, you only need the human body systems. Well, then you can purchase only the chapter, the part that has the human body systems. All of the links to the class is down below in the description box. And you can choose. You can either do one part, which is that's the only part that you need, or you can choose this entire class. I personally believe that you will be ready, much more prepared, if you do the full class. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to show you a sample of how I go over the material right after this. If you do purchase my course, thank you so much for your time, for your purchase. I really appreciate you. These funds will help me to continue making YouTube videos and continue making these online classes for students that did not get the resources. So now I'm going to go ahead and clip in a video of characteristics of life to again show you how the course kind of flows. All right, take care.
All right, everyone, let's review Characteristics of Life Lesson 1. The first thing we need to understand, living things use energy to maintain life. So before we answer this question, we need to know that the main source of energy for all living things is the sun. So what are the characteristics of life? What are things that make things to be considered living? Why are living organisms living? So the first thing is that living things use energy to maintain life. So let's talk about energy and the animal cell. We're going to see the animal cell in a future lesson, breaking it down. Where does energy come from for the human body? We know that for Earth, energy comes from the sun. For the ecosystem, for Earth, for life, energy comes from the sun. But once that happens, where do we get energy for the human body? We get energy from the food we eat. And within that food, it's from chemical bonds. I think my pen is too thick. So food we eat, chemical bonds within the food that we eat. Also, through oxygen. We breathe in oxygen. That combination of the food chemical bonds and the oxygen help us make energy called ATP. We're going to break this down in a future lesson of how we get ATP. Where is it converted into energy? Which organelle? Organelle is found in cells. Organelles are little organs that do specific functions for the life of the cell. So where is food and oxygen converted to energy? In the mitochondria. The mitochondria makes energy. That energy is called ATP. Once again, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. What is the biological process called? The biological process that makes ATP, that uses food chemical bonds to break them, use that energy, and the combination of oxygen to make ATP energy. What biochemical process is that called? That is called cellular respiration. Sometimes just called respiration. Okay, let's move on. But what about plant cells? Name the type of organisms that do not make their own food. Organisms that do not make their own food are called autotrophs. They make their own food. Oh, I'm sorry. Name a type of organism that do not. So let's erase that. Apologies. That do not make their own food. Organisms that do not make their own food are called heterotrophs. They have to get their own food. Us, we do not make our own food. So we have to go to the supermarket. We have to farm. We have to plant them. We have to be farmers and grow our own food. So we are examples of heterotrophs. But in terms of the plant cell, how do plants get energy? Where do plants get energy? Plants get energy from the sun. They are also autotrophs. Where is it converted into energy? Where is the energy from the sun converted into sugar for the plant? In the chloroplast. This is the organelle in a plant cell that takes the energy from the sun and converts it into sugar. Which kind of sugar? Glucose sugar. Glucose. Glucose is made in the chloroplast through the process of, I'm sure I have a question based off that, of course. What biochemical process takes energy from the sun and make it into sugar glucose? That process is called photosynthesis. What are the types of organisms that make their own food? They are called autotrophs. Autotrophs make their own food. So remember, we are talking about what are the characteristics of life. The first one is that all living things make energy, and we just discussed how certain cells make energy. Second characteristic of life, all living things need nutrients. All living things need nutrients. So what are the nutrients found in food? There are 3 main organic compounds found in food. 1, carbohydrate. Carbohydrates are also known as sugars. An example of a carbohydrate is glucose. 2, lipids. Lipids are also fats. 3, proteins. What are the building blocks? The building block means what makes up protein, what makes up carbohydrates, what makes up lipid. The one that you are supposed to know is proteins. Amino acids make up proteins. Amino acid are smaller molecules that chain up together to make one large specific protein. Next question. We need minerals. We need minerals like zinc, potassium, magnesium, salts. What type of vitamins do we need? Vitamin A, B, D, E, etc. So these are all the types of nutrients. Oh, and of course the main one, we need water. We need water. So these are all the different types of nutrients that we need to live, that all living things need. All living things excrete waste. We have to remove waste. So let's talk about that. Which biochemical process produces waste? The biochemical process that produces waste is cellular respiration. When you are making energy, ATP energy, you're also making what's called byproducts. Those byproducts of the reaction, are waste. Where does waste come from? Waste comes from your cells. What is the name of that waste? When you make that waste is then filtered out in your blood. Your liver processes this. Your kidneys filter this, and it's called urea. Which human body system gets rid of waste? The excretory system, which is made up of kidneys, ureters, bladder, urethra. You have your kidneys, your ureter, your bladder, your urethra. When you urinate, you are removing urea. Let's move on. We're going to talk more about how we excrete waste. Sorry about that. In a future lesson. All living things grow and develop. All living things grow and develop. Well, there is a specific name for how we grow and develop. That specific name of when we grow and develop is called mitosis. Mitosis is cell division. When you break a bone as you're growing to adulthood, from baby to a toddler, when your skin needs to heal from damage, one cell is then split into two cells. Humans have 46 chromosomes. Those chromosomes need to copy themselves to both of the new, what we call daughter cells. There are specific steps in this that happen. You honestly don't really need to know this. They don't ask you this on the Regents. But this process of cell division for growth and development is called mitosis. There's another type of way of cells, of you making more cells. Sex cell division. When you make sex cells that are also called gametes, gametes are also known as sex cells. That is called meiosis. Well, what are the gamete sex cells of a female? That is an egg. And for a male, it's a sperm. And we're going to talk more about that in future lessons. Number 5, all living things maintain homeostasis. What is the definition of homeostasis? It's having a stable internal environment. You are not sick. You do not have a fever. You do not have organ failure. Everything in your body is good. It is stable. Well, what are some examples of living organisms at homeostasis? I just said it. You are not sick. You do not have a fever. You do not have organ failure. You don't have a virus. You don't you aren't infected with a bacterial infection. You are stable. Your temperature is stable. Examples of living organisms not at homeostasis, the complete opposite of what I just said. Organ failure, fever, bacterial infection, etc. Number 6, all living organisms reproduce. Well, what are the types of reproduction? You have asexual reproduction, where you have one parent only. One parent. So their babies, their offspring, their next generation is going to be identical. Identical to the parent. This asexual reproduction is also called mitosis. And this is another example of cloning. But this asexual reproduction, you only see this in certain plants and bacteria or one-celled organisms. Sexual reproduction are two different parents. So the offspring is going to be different from the parents. The offspring are going to be different from the parents. It creates variation within a species. Look at us humans. Think of all us humans. Think of all the different types of people you know in your life. We have variety. We have variation. But besides the way we look, another example of variation is our immune systems. Our immune systems are different. Some of us have strong immune systems. Some of us have weak immune systems. So when a virus comes, a new virus comes, not everyone is going to die from the virus. Some will die, some will live. This is good for evolutionary purposes, for survival of the fittest, that we'll talk about in a later lesson. Number 7, all living organisms are made up of cells. That is the most important thing about living organisms. There are two types of cells. There's eukaryotic cells and there's prokaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells are animal and plant cells. Prokaryotic cells are bacterial cells. There was a lab that you should have done in this class pertaining to when you're learning about cells, and that is the cheek cell lab. Maybe your lab looks something like this in the beginning. You use the microscope and you viewed your own cells. So what you did is you took a toothpick and you scraped the inside of your mouth and you collected thousands of cells. You took the toothpick and you put the sample on a drop of water on what we call a wet mount slide. You then took the slide and you looked at it under a microscope. And this is an example of cheek cells. Your cheek cells are not this color. Your cheek cells, in order for you to see them, you had to stain them. You needed a stain to see this. This specific color stain, iodine was used. Iodine was used to stain these cells. Sometimes the regents ask you to label the cheek cells. So this is a cheek cell. This is another one. This is a different one. This is a different one. This is a different one. This one looks really good. So we're going to label this beautiful cell right here. The outermost layer of a cell is a cell membrane. This structure right here is an organelle called the nucleus. This jelly-like substance, the inside, all of the inside of a cell, is called the cytoplasm. So if you have an arrow pointing to the outside of this cheek cell, it's a cell membrane. If you have an arrow pointing to this structure in the middle, that is called the nucleus, where DNA is found. If you have an arrow pointing to the inside of the matrix of that cell, it is called cytoplasm. Okay, now that concludes lesson 1. Go ahead and do the practice questions. So go ahead and print out or open it up in your iPad and do the practice questions. Once you finish the practice questions, take a look at the answer key provided. The most important thing that you can do for this test is practice the questions pertaining to these lessons. All right, let's move on to lesson 2.